You are watching Park TV. Welcome to Monadnock Tonight with your host, Steve Jackson. Coming to you live from the studios of the Park Theater in downtown Jaffrey, New Hampshire. Join Steve and his guest today, candidate for the New Hampshire State House of Representatives, Andrew Maneval. Now sit back, relax, and here's Steve.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Park TV and the Park Theater's Monadnock Tonight program. And it is Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. It's just about a little bit after 5 p.m. here on the East Coast. And this is yes, it's another milestone. This is show number 40. We've done 40 of these, folks. Thank you to our devoted fans that are with us every show. And thank you to everyone that watches us on demand afterwards. And yes, I am Steve Jackson, CEO of the Park Theater and your host. And we're very glad you could join us today because it's going to be an interesting and informative program. Because our guest today is running for a seat in the New Hampshire State House of Representatives. And that's always interesting to find out more about someone who's putting that type of service up and wants to be part of something and help something and not sit back. And so you've got to applaud anyone that is running for public office in more ways than one. And we'll talk about some of those ways. But first, a couple of notes before we get into our interview. One thing that I have not talked about in a while, and I think it is time that we know about it again, is, we've got this very stunning official Park Theater baseball cap. And it is being worn in this photograph by a good friend of the theater because he was the superintendent on site of handling the construction of the new Park Theater. His name is Mr. Les Samaro, and not here anymore because his job is done. But while he was here, Les also became a model for us, and here he is modeling our cotton embroidered baseball cap. And you are able to pick that up. Supposedly that link, well, you certainly see the link there. I think it goes over to our feed on Facebook. But you can always call here if you need one, but they're $20 each. I think it's $3 if we ship them to you. You can pick them up here at our office on River Street, but they're just $20. They help us. Every little bit helps, but in return, you do get a beautiful baseball cap that you can let everybody know that you support the Park Theater. The other thing about support, and this is a little broader than the Park Theater, as I talked about it last week, we are helping out with a national initiative that is being put forward by an organization that represents us, at least from the movie side of things, and represents 35,000 screens all over the country that are having a problem staying afloat, and especially the independent theaters like ourselves and Peterborough Community Theater, the Wilton, Colonial, the smaller theaters, Gardner, Keene theaters. These are all, they're not big chains like AMC, and they're having their problems too. And they've got a lot of employees who work at these theaters that are also have been either lost their jobs or been furloughed. But there are a lot of little theaters, the independent ones, much harder to hold on. And they are in many cases being already being closed, and not temporarily, but permanently. So here's an initiative. We showed it last week. I'm going to show it again, of a little public service announcement that we have on behalf of this initiative. So go to saveyourcinema.com, save your cinema, singular, saveyourcinema.com, and you'll have get a lot of information there. And there is they help you write an email to your respective congressional representatives, no matter what state you are in. So that can be very helpful. And we have already heard that quite a few of these letters email letters have been going out to our representatives, and let them know about it, because there are initiatives with various acts, and there are grant initiatives and so forth, but for small companies that can be translated over to and help independent cinemas. So saveyourcinema.com. Okay, now to the crux, the meat of our show. Our guest today is running for the District 14 seat in in the New Hampshire State of House Representatives. And for those who don't know, we'll find out shortly exactly what District 14 represents, if you don't already know. He has served the town of Harrisville for many years. He's been a selectman, the emergency management director, member of the planning board, the zoning board of adjustment. He served briefly on the Harrisville Fire Department. He was also the treasurer of the Harrisville Fire Company and headed up the Friends of Harrisville Fire Service. He helped draft Harrisville's master plan and chaired Harrisville's broadband committee. He's also a member of the town's electric aggregation committee. And he's been very involved with nonprofits, including Historic Harrisville, the Cornucopia Project that many of you know about. And if that's not enough, he's had a long, successful business career, attorney, partner in a New York City law firm, executive in a Fortune 100 company, in charge of several of that company's insurance and management companies, and has a private consultancy working as an arbitrator, mediator, and a financial and insurance industries consultant. And you say, Steve, who is this man? Well, he is Andrew Maneval, and he is coming on through the miracle of the internet. 1, 2, and there is Andrew.
Hello, Steve.
Wow. Hi, Andrew, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Could I just start by saying what an incredible addition the Park Theater is to the Monadnock region? I mean, it's down to you and a number of other people who've made this a reality, and it's a great asset now. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Those very kind words. And as you know, that's it's no one individual that makes this place go. And certainly, I've been involved with coming up on 5 years or so with the Park Theater, and there have been many individuals that have been here for 15 plus years working on this initiative. But they've had the passion and the commitment to see it through. And who knew we'd be ending on a year like this as we get through our construction? But those are the cards you're dealt, and we do the best we can with it. And we will have a theater open for everyone. I just can't tell them when. But thank you for those kind remarks. But again, it is about a lot of people who want to give back to communities. And you certainly, after reading your bio to everyone, you certainly have done that, especially in the Harrisville community. But before we get into that, Andrew, I'd love to, I touched on a lot of areas, but if you might be able to, for those who don't know you, to give a little bit more embellishment to of the areas of your history and your resume, so to speak, and let everyone know who Andrew Maneval is from the background, and then we'll get into why you're running.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I'd love to do that. I have been in Harrisville for quite some time now. My wife and I live here. We love Harrisville. We love the whole Monadnock region. We love New Hampshire. My wife's a writer. We have 2 grown children. We're very proud of them. Our daughter's an emergency room nurse. Our son is a high school sports coach, among other things. And we love living here. And you're right to say I've been very active in Harrisville affairs, but this is my first run for any kind of a statewide office. So I'm new to politics. I'm not new to business, though. As you mentioned, I've had a pretty long business career. I have my own office here in Harrisville, and I have a background of having been now in a very small company, also having been an executive in a very big company, and a lawyer before that. So my experience is pretty broad regarding business and the law, and also with municipal matters. It takes a lot of effort, and I should say a lot of wonderful volunteerism in towns like Harrisville and all of the towns around here and throughout the state to make them work and to make sure the roads are kept up, the recycling center works, the people's interest in seeing a good government functioning are observed. It takes a lot of effort, and the people who work at it over long periods of time deserve the kind of thanks that you kind of started this program out with.
Well, and it takes once you have that background, certainly, but to take that initiative to go to this next step, to run for public office, is a big leap, and certainly it comes with a certain amount of, when you're in the public eye, the people are your target, and but again, anyone, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, if you're putting yourself out there to do what you think might make good change in your community, there is something very noble about that. But if you could tell us, why are you running well, first, before we ask why you're running, just so everybody knows, District 14, if you could explain exactly what that encompasses in terms of towns.
Yes, certainly. It's called the Floterial District, and it includes 6 towns going from the north to the south. It includes Roxbury, Harrisville, Dublin, Jaffrey, Rindge, and Fitzwilliam. And so it's a pretty thin but long band of towns with a lot of similarities and some differences that incorporates District 14.
All right. So now we've, folks, if you don't know the geography, if one of your towns is one of those towns in District 14, you want to, to make an informed choice, you want to know more about Andrew and of course his opponent that will be coming up soon as well. And Andrew, you are running uncontested under the Democratic Party, correct?
Right, uncontested in terms of the primary, right?
In terms of the primaries. But let's get to, what to make that leap to run for office. What motivated you?
Well, it's always interesting to look at what one can do for one's community. I'm not going to use any word like noble, like you did a little while ago, but there are some things you can do, and one thing that I found when I was in Harrisville was that you really, when you're representing people in a town and you're in government, it's beholden on you to represent everybody, not just the people who voted for you, not just interest groups, not just points of view. And there's viewpoints, I think, that have some substance to them, that at the national level we're a kind of divided nation with not a lot of bipartisanship. And one thing I felt I could do in Harrisville was really represent everybody. And I think state government is more like municipal or local government than it is like the federal operation. It's a place where the issues that divide us should be a whole lot smaller than the ones that unite us. in terms of making for good policy so that the government runs efficiently, smartly, thoughtfully, transparently. So the idea that I could provide those kind of services and just do it in a slightly bigger pond, let's say, was what motivated me to run.
Well, I've taken a look at some of the issues that you've put at the top of your list. And you, at first blush, you certainly wouldn't think they're necessarily bipartisan issues because they're important areas for everyone. And maybe if you can speak to some of them, and just starting with one which we always joke about, and we were joking about before the show, and people do joke about it. But on our show, we have so many issues with broadband; it's not funny. But there isn't. But it is an issue for a lot of towns, especially in rural areas, that do not have service, period, or they do not have consistent service. So I'll let you speak to broadband as being an issue that you're concerned about.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I'm going to back into that a little bit. I'll touch on it, but one of my points that I was very interested in Harrisville and would be in Concord if I'm honored to be elected, is what I like to think of as sensible economic development. And I say sensible all the time because the development that we'd like to see has to be tailored to fit New Hampshire. It has to be smart. It has to recognize the assets we have here, like our beautiful wild areas and lakes and open spaces and scenic views and all that. If we take those things into account, then sensible economic development allows us to build a more dynamic economy, to have a more diverse population that could include a lot of younger people, families, people moving in from different parts of the country, and make our businesses, our culture, our arts, and our lifestyle more dynamic and vibrant and sustainable. And so,
now,
and to do that in this day and age, nothing is more important than having good telecommunication connections.
Yeah.
Starting with high-speed, reliable broadband. Because
Andrew, can I pardon me for breaking in for a second, but when you're talking about sensible development, are there any communities in New Hampshire or in New England or that we might be aware of, or that you could speak to, that you think really have embraced sensible development, but especially, of course, in New Hampshire, because we all know what we love about our state?
Yeah. Well, I could use lots of examples, but let me use just two to contrast them in a certain respect. Harrisville, I hate to be too much of a homebody, but Harrisville is a great example because we have very thoughtful zoning here and an oversight of how new construction gets overseen. We're careful about it, and some might say it's a bit restrictive, but the objective is to get an increase in affordable housing, so that all different levels of income families can live here, and older people too, and young families, but preserve our wilder spaces while we're also looking for ways to develop some density of housing to permit more people to live here, even while we protect our landscapes and so forth. So that's kind of a small town, uber rural kind of approach. It has to require an openness to development, but done in a careful way that's carefully overseen for the community.
Yeah.
Another example is a place like Portsmouth, which has done such a beautiful job growing, recognizing its remarkable historical assets. Harrisville's done some of that too, of course, but really modernized itself to attract younger people, the type of of young people, young couples, young families that are often seen as wanting to move to Brooklyn or San Francisco or Austin, Texas, or places. Well, we can attract some of those people to New Hampshire, and we should be doing some of that too, especially as jobs become performable from remote locations where you can have the beauty of a lake out your back door or nearby, uh, forests to hike in, and you can still get to your quote unquote office by way of the internet and do the same kind of sophisticated work you do anywhere else. Now, that's not the only kind of work we have to develop for a sensible, modern economy, but it's a leading characteristic. And we can't ignore that as we try and bring both reliable internet and cell service and other forms of infrastructure improvements to rural New Hampshire.
Anything other in terms of broadband now, and what type of I mean, how is Harrisville set for broadband right now?
It's an interesting question, and I could go on for hours about it. I've been involved for the last 5 years. I'm not going to do that. But what I will say is this: the state has taken some steps toward trying to let towns deal with the issue of improvements in internet. It's been a long time coming and very much needed. Towns now are able to band together a little bit under recent legislation to join with other towns in creating bonding districts for broadband and so forth. That's an option that's starting to come together. However, a whole bunch of towns like Harrisville, Rindge, last year Chesterfield kind of was the pathfinder in this, have entered into deals with private contractors, in all of our cases with Consolidated Communications, to, in return for getting giving the right to Consolidated to contact people and set up accounts and provide internet. We've ensured that every house, every residency, every business in Harrisville would get fiber wired with fiber to the premises internet, which is still the state of the art. It's the most reliable form of high-speed internet. They're talking about guarantees of, for those people who are familiar with this sort of thing, up to and even in excess of a gig symmetrical for internet service, and for businesses even more. I mean, it's really an incredible leap forward in what we're doing here, and other towns have picked this up. Rindge, of course, has followed the same path we have.
And moving on to another utility area of other than communications, what about electric?
Yeah, that's an interesting area. Again, there's a very new piece of legislation that made it possible for towns in New Hampshire, both as a town and potentially with other towns in their area or across the state, to utilize aggregation or joining together to buy power together, both to achieve the benefits of economies of scale for doing that, improving rates, and also by that starting to address the types of mixes between fossil fuels and other sustainable kinds of energy, creating reserve funds for towns to use to build up sustainable energy services, both production and in terms of conservation. And Harrisville has an aggregation committee. We're working very diligently on that. Quite a few other towns in New Hampshire are doing that now. There are some of the bigger towns that are way farther ahead already, like Nashua, Lebanon, stick out. They're already engaged in plans to move forward with that. But small towns can do a lot now to work through what had been a highly regulated industry. Obviously, it went through significant deregulation, and now there are a lot of options for towns to improve on what's available in services and costs.
Moving on to another issue that you have put the spotlight on is voting rights.
Yeah, it goes without saying, I think. I'd like to say it goes without saying that we're a democracy and it functions best when everyone's involved. And involvement is hard when it's, calling people to volunteer, like my friends in the fire department, to get coals in the middle of the night to go out and help someone that's fallen down and so forth. But one of the easiest things should be voting. I mean, that kind of participation, that kind of engagement should be made as simple as it can be. And obviously, no one wants to see any kind of fraud or mischief involved with elections. There's virtually no experience of it here or almost anywhere. It's one of those crimes where, so-called crimes, where it's hard to imagine why someone would risk the penalties for the gain of casting extra votes.
Yeah.
Typically, the issues around voting are when someone's forgotten which house they're voting from and that sort of thing. But, the idea of making voting simple and available for as many legitimate residents of our state as possible, I think is what everybody should be on board with. So, there's people say the devil's in the details, but, as long as you start with the principle that this is something where we want enfranchisement, not disenfranchisement, that's a good goal to have in mind whenever you're talking about voting rights and the rules and where you can vote and what can happen in the nature of a pandemic like we're facing now. I mean, I at least commend the governor for a temporary approval to allow people who are legitimately concerned about COVID-19 to vote via absentee ballot, which is, of course, as it should be, and now at least temporarily is.
Another topic that is always on a lot of discussion in any household and certainly in politics is the minimum wage and where it is today, where it has been for a long time, and where a lot of people would like to see it go. So your thoughts on where you would like to see the minimum wage go?
Well, as your listeners might know, there was a bill that was submitted to the governor recently that had a $10 rate to take effect on January 1st, 21. And I think it was a $12 rate, 12 or 13 in 23. That was vetoed by the governor. And so we now have a minimum wage in New Hampshire that's set at the federal minimum of $7.25. Now, if you assume a worker who works for 40 hours a week all year at the minimum wage, in a family of two, that puts them well under the poverty line. I mean, this is a minimum wage, which even for a small family is not at all tracking with, never mind a living wage, even a poverty wage. I'm in favor of the legislation that was submitted to the governor. I hope we get a chance to send it back and that he'll approve it. Our proposed amounts are not outrageous. Not only are they not outrageous, they're low by many standards. We're the only state in the Northeast that has the kind of minimum wage that we have here in New Hampshire. I think there are 29 states that have their own higher rate, ranging from $9 or $10 up to 15 in the District of Columbia. And there are 16 which set, actually there are 21 that set either the federal rate or none at all. And we don't want to be competing with them. We could easily be losing valuable workers and employees out of New Hampshire. We are anyway, or have in recent years. If our wages are so uncompetitive, we'll lose more. And there's very little evidence, compelling evidence, that employment goes down significantly once there's a minimum wage. In fact, what it can do, and some studies have shown this, is inspire workers to, first of all, consider themselves more fairly paid than they were, recognize they have more to lose if they lose their jobs, and be more productive and more of a contribution to the companies they work in. So we have to find a way to join the modern world a little bit here in New Hampshire and recognize what it takes to compete with other economies in our area.
Do you know, Andrew, what the average minimum wage is in the state of New Hampshire? I mean, I know.
I don't have that information to mind. Yeah. It's obviously well above $7.25. In fact, it's probably closer to the living wage, which is thought of as just a little bit north of $20 an hour. It might even be a few dollars an hour more than that. But yeah, don't forget what the average is comparing or adding together the millionaires with the people who work in McDonald's. And what we don't want to do is have a lot of people working at McDonald's or other places where we're essentially having to subsidize them. The taxpayers are paying for some of their welfare costs or Medicare costs. I'm sorry, Medicaid costs. And other kinds of food stamps. Food stamps and Medicaid are both available to people who are working below the poverty line. So what that means is for those workers, we're subsidizing them anyway. Why shouldn't the businesses that hire them be contributing to that? So it's not all of people in New Hampshire that we're worried about. It's how to make it work economically most efficiently.
Final issue, there are many of them, but final one that I know that's important to you is the environment. Absolutely. And to give everyone on our audience a sense of where you stand on that and where you see opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. We have a climate crisis. There's no denying that. There's no pretending it doesn't exist. We have to be adults. Now, we're not going to solve that problem in New Hampshire alone, but we have to be joining in with other states, with the nation, and ultimately with other countries to deal with this crisis, this serious problem. And it has to be done soon. The good news, though, of course, is that there is a lot to be done to build an economy that's taking into account new kinds of energy production, conservation, and storage, and so forth. This could be something that really contributes to our economy in ways that develop whole new businesses and employment that sophisticated states will take advantage of. The other necessary consideration is the point I started with, which is we want a vibrant economy in New Hampshire. We're not going to get it by competing with West Virginia for coal mining. We're going to get it by preserving the beauty of New Hampshire and building on what we have here to attract people to come with their small companies, their entrepreneurial ideas, and so forth. And the only way we're going to do that is to protect our water, our lakes, our rivers and streams, our forests. And it is incumbent on us to do that, both for our own good, but also for the good of the environment.
as we're coming to a close, I would love for you to kind of, if you make it to Concord and make it through the election and are the winner of what, in summary, you as a state representative for District 14, what Andrew Maneval can bring to New Hampshire and to our district, and just love you to summarize again why you're running and what are the qualities that make you the right candidate.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I like to think, and I think my experience in Harrisville shows it, that I'll listen to everybody. There's no idea that's outside of my willingness to learn from it, hear it, include it if it makes sense. We need civility and bipartisanship in Concord. We need someone who will look for the smartest and science-based, reasonable, and well thought out solutions to our problems. It is a job that all parties and all representatives and senators should be taking on. And many, I'd say most of them are. I believe I can do that, and that I can really represent everybody in District 14, not just people who vote for me, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, not just people in favor of this or that objective or practice. I'd be there for Harrisville and the other 5 towns of the district, and for New Hampshire to try and get good solutions to our problems that cross the aisle. I like to mention I have a website at Maneval for NH.
We've got it up there.
Okay.
It's on the screen for those who want to know how to find out more about Andrew and the issues that concern him.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I want to see good government. I want it to be transparent, thoughtful, open, and oriented to making good decisions. And that's what I want to bring to Concord.
Great. Well, Andrew, thank you for joining us today and getting folks to know you a little bit better. If they don't know you already, many do. But this is a great way to connect with potential voters. And as you said, I've got it up there, manevalfornh.com. You can learn more about Andrew and his positions and why he is running for state rep. And please visit it.
Thank you, Steve. And by the way, thanks also for that little service for movie theaters generally. That's generous of the Park Theater, but it's a great service because movie theaters are struggling, and I appreciate hearing that at the beginning.
Well, it helps us all. There is nothing there's nothing worse than a theater closing, and as the old saying goes, the last picture show. We don't want the last picture show to happen because theaters are, that is the epicenter of community and their communal experiences. And there's nothing better than bringing people together to experience a film or a live show or a debate or, you want to bring people together, and hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll have that opportunity to have everyone in our theater. Well, this time, for the first time in a long time, since 1976, that we'll have people in the theater, in the new theater. But yes, thank you for mentioning that again. SaveYourCinema.com, folks. SaveYourCinema.com. Well, Andrew, good luck to you as you move towards November. We've invited your opponents who are duking it out in the primary, 2 opposing candidates in the Republican side. And we hope that they will be on the show as well, and they can state their views and why they're running.
I hope you will too, and I'll look forward to seeing them if they're on your show.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. All the best to you, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you, Stephen. Be well.
All right. Bye-bye.
Right, bye.
Well, great. And it's great to have Andrew here kind of as our introductory in terms of politics. We certainly don't want to, we just want to bring candidates to you through the Park Theater and let you hear what they have to say. We've got a great way and a forum so that you can learn more no matter what side of the aisle they're on or if they don't have an aisle. But if they're a candidate for a position in our area, we'd love to, if you're out there listening, we'd love to connect with you. We certainly, in this particular race, is our introduction. But we'll look at other races that are affecting the Monadnock region as well. And we'd love to have all the candidates on to be able to state why they're running and the issues that are important to them. And again, for Andrew, if you want to learn more about Andrew, again, go to Maneval, MANEVALFORNH.com. What else is going on? Well, as we end up our show today, I wanted to, as I always keep reminding folks, there are lots of free movies that we curate to find you interesting films, mainly older films, sometimes occasionally newer films. But when you see scrolling across there, it's Parks Picks Flicks. And when you go to theparktheater.org, just look in the upper right part of the screen, and you're going to see on the navigation menu, free movies. Click free movies, and you're going to see all the movies we've presented over the past several months. And that all they take is a click, and you can watch feature films, some cartoons, some comedies, from the U.S., from the U.K., from Italy, from France. They're from all over the world, and they're great films. You may have seen them once. You might want to see them again, or you may never have seen them. You may have heard of them. And it's easy to do it because it's free. And there's nothing better than that. Now, if you have ideas for films or anything else on our show, please contact us. And if you'd like to sponsor us, please contact us. But it's easily done because all you've got to do is send us an email at parktv@theparktheater.org right here in Jaffrey, New Hampshire. Or you can call us Monday through Friday at 532-9300, 532-9300. We come to a close here at the show. And as we always like to do, we ask everyone to be safe out there, be healthy, be kind, be hopeful. We can do this. We are doing this. And we'd love to see you again next week. This Thursday. We have a special surprise on Thursday's show. So be on the watch for that. And I'm Steve Jackson. I'm so glad you joined us today. And Andrew, we thank you for being here. And Kim, our producer, we thank Kim for producing our program. And we will see you soon. So have a great rest of the week, everybody.